What's up, guys? Back once again with another Cubase video today. If you've been wondering where I've been, it's because about 3 months ago now, I moved home to England from Seattle after living there for about 15 years. So I had to replace some gear and get settled, and that's why I haven't been putting out any content for a little while. Got this nice new Nectar Panorama P6 keyboard that I've been getting used to amongst some other gear. So I figured it's about time to put something up on the channel. So here I am in my sister's old room in Kent at my parents' house, and I thought today I'd do a quick video addressing some of the questions I've been asked in the comment sections on some of my previous videos. So let's jump in. Okay, so here we are in Cubase 10. This should all be looking pretty familiar now to anyone who's been watching any of my videos so far. The first question I wanted to address was from a subscriber called Kamruzaman Azad. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. His question was, where can I get the Percussion Agent kit? Now, unfortunately, the Percussion Agent kit is an exclusive kit to the full version of Groove Agent. So if you're only using SE, you're not going to have this here. It's a pretty cool percussion kit that contains, I think, 22 different percussion kits pre-mixed, plus one initialized preset here. See, if I close out of here and we'll open up Groove Agent SE, look in the library here, you're going to see there is no Percussion Agent kit. Unfortunately, it isn't one that Steinberg sell as a separate refill, so it only comes exclusive with the full version of Groove Agent. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you won't be able to get it if you only have the Cubase version. Going to move on to the next question, which is from a subscriber called Fabio. I don't know if it is the Fabio, probably not. His question is, he says, great video. Cheers, by the way. He says, where did you get the Latin style? I own Groove Agent 5, but I don't have the Latin style. So let's switch back over to the full Groove Agent now. The Latin style actually comes in this Jazz Essentials expansion, and it's the style for a kit called Latin Course. So if we open this one up, I'll switch over to the style player so we can check it out a little bit. Just going to get a 4-bar loop in here, and let's switch over to the style player. We'll put Follow Transport on. Set the complexity somewhere here. We'll put on some auto fills and auto complexity to make things a bit more interesting, and let's loop it through. Now this one is one of the funkier kits that comes with Jazz Essentials. So what I'd like to do generally is keep that pattern enabled and then switch over to something from one of the funk kits. Let's maybe try out Vintage Masterclass, or no, let's do Straight Shuffle. See how that sounds with the Latin Course style playing. We can maybe try one more before I move on to the next question. Let's try Funk the Snare. Or maybe let's try the SE version. Slightly different sounding studio kit. So yeah, I quite like that preset. It's got some nice funk to it. Let's move on to the next question. This one is from a subscriber called Paolo Montalto. Once again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. His question was, are all the expansions sold separately on the Steinberg website included in Groove Agent 5? Once again, unfortunately, the answer there is no. I'll just go over what's included in each version real quickly here to answer that question. So in Groove Agent SE, the Cubase version, what you get with it is, in the one that comes with Cubase 10, you get the Kit SE, which is the new acoustic agent kit. You'll also get production grooves, the Pop Rock Toolbox. The Cubase one comes with, I believe it is about 30 different beat agent kits. Some of these are other ones that are from the Groove Agent 1 library, which I imported. And then it also comes with the Studio SE kit, this one here. And that's really all you get on the full Groove Agent 1 library. In Cubase 10, you'll also get this library called Laser Beams. Now, if I go back to the full version of Groove Agent now, you'll see there's quite a bit more included, but not all of them, unfortunately. A lot of those are paid refills. So what you get with the full version is you get the full version of the kit, which has more multi-sampling of each drum and better mixing options than the SE version. Again, you'll get your raw power is another new library for it, and you'll get the full vintage kit, studio kit, rock kit, and the percussion kit. And then Alan Morgan's signature drums, I think, also comes with Cubase. Plus, you'll also get a library, the full Groove Agent 4 libraries, over 100 beat agent kits. So unfortunately, all of these other ones, these Essentials, the Colliding Worlds, Future Electronica, Metronomic Cinema, Neuro Mindset, Prime Cuts, the songwriters I have here, and Simon Phillips Studio Drums, those are all paid expansions, which you don't actually get with the full version. So let's move on to the next question. I've got two questions here from a subscriber called Jerome Weaver. We'll start with the first question was, is there a way to customize the timing on acoustic agent kits? So while we have this one loaded up, we'll go back to the SE kit real quick first, because this one's a lot more limited. So in Groove Agent SE, if we load up, let's see, load something up from the acoustic agent here from the Studio SE kit. Let's maybe go with Forget the Past. Okay, actually we want to put Follow Transport on this one and turn it off of this one. So on this one, you don't actually have a way to edit the patterns inside of Groove Agent like you can with Groove Agent 5, which I'll cover in just a moment. The only control you really get over it is the swing control here. And you can choose where you want the swing to take place. So every 16th note, 8th note, so on. You can also tighten up the quantize. 100% quantize will be 100% quantized to the grid of your project. Somewhere in the middle will tighten it up a little bit, and 0% is much more realistic, like a live drummer's playing it. This button here adds a little gap before the fills, and it does have kind of like a halftime feel. It isn't true halftime, but I'll show you how you can achieve that in a minute. So that's pretty much all you can do here. What you can do though is convert the style to MIDI, and then once you've got it in MIDI, you can go to true halftime. You could go to double time as well, which would sound pretty awful at 140. But the full version of Groove Agent, you do get a little bit more control. With this one, if you wanted to tighten things up and change the timing of when the drums are hitting, you'd have to drag the MIDI to your project from here. You can create a drum map from the instrument here, and then you can see where everything is, and you can go in and move things, quantize it, do whatever you want to do with it. With the full version of Groove Agent, you do get a little added element of control where in the MIDI player, you can adjust the patterns directly within the instrument itself. So we go back to here, we'll pick let's put follow transport back on, sorry, and turn it off of this one. So we go back to the full version here. You can go into the pattern here. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, you have to be in the MIDI player to do that. So if we convert it to MIDI first, we'll go into the pattern editor there, and you can actually control it within Groove Agent in the full one. So you do get a little bit more control there. But once again, you can also just drag the MIDI up to the Cubase project, create a drum map from the instrument, and edit it there as well. That's really the best way to get full control over the timing of where the drums are hitting. Jerome Weaver's other question was, can sampling be done? Now, that really is the strength of Groove Agent. As far as an acoustic drum module goes, it really doesn't live up to the likes of Addictive Drums 2, which I've been using much more for that purpose, or BFD 3, or Superior Drummer. But as a drum sampler, it far surpasses those instruments. So we'll remove this kit here. There's a couple of different ways to do it depending on which version of Groove Agent you're using. So if we open up the SE version here, you can basically go through your browser here and pick out different kicks or whatever, different snares. And sample that way. Or you can drag a loop in from your media bay, drop it on here and chop it up. But really the real beauty of the sampling is in the full version. So in this one, it has this extra recorder section. So I've got Neferton loaded up here, which is a really good 808 emulation from D16 Group out of Poland. They do a really good job of emulating these old Roland instruments. I've got their 303, their 808, and their 909. This is the 808 here. I'm just going to turn up the level a little bit here. Maybe add a little more decay to this kick. We'll do the same with the snare. We'll do maybe the hand clap as well. And some hi-hats. Just to kind of demonstrate how you can sample with this thing. Okay, yes, maybe not turn the tone up though. All right, something like that. And then we can also do it from Groove Agent SE as well. So while we have this percussion, while we have this kit open, let's reset this agent again. I'm going to get something in from the Studio Kit SE. Let's maybe get something from Funk Essentials. Maybe Vintage Masterclass SE. So the mapping should be the same. Our kick will be on C1, snare on D1, and so on. The claps and things might be a bit different. But we'll start with Neferton. I'm just going to close this for a sec and close this. So if we go back to the instrument pane here on C1, we go to this recorder tab. Now the way I tend to set this up is to set that to as played. I'll set it based on an audio threshold to start and stop recording. And if you set auto trim to 0 crossing, it'll move the sample start position to the first 0 crossing before it detects sound. Now, in order to record directly to the drum pads, you have to set up, turn on the sidechain input here. And then on both of these instruments, we will just on the audio sends, send it to that side chain. Do the same with Groove Agent SE here. Okay, so with this one, all I should have to do now is record enable this and press play. Okay, so there's our 808 kit, and if we go, I'm just going to turn off loop for the purposes of this. we move that now up to the Groove Agent SE channel. Chord enable once again and hit play. Okay, so now we have two samples mapped to that one pad. We've got an 808 kick, 808 kick, and an acoustic one. At the moment, they are set to velocity, so I'm going to set them to layer, and then we can start going in and editing things. Now with this option here, it'll edit every sample on the pad at the same time, and this one will allow you to solo and edit each sample. So there's our 808, there's our acoustic layer. For the purposes of this, let's do both at the same time. So I'm going to switch over to the amp envelope here. One of the newer features is we can turn this on to show the waveform in the background. I'll turn on sync, make it a one shot, and snap to grid. So then this will snap to every 16th note now. So we can snap that to there, snap that to there, maybe select the sustain node, turn this down to like 75, and we'll see how that sounds. Okay, so that's both of them layered up together there. And we could then do the same with the snare. So if we go into here, I'm going to move this up or down to the snare, sorry. We'll move over to this drum pad and activate the recorder again, record enable and play. So there's our acoustic one. And we can now move this MIDI down to the Nephaton channel, record enable, play. And then we've got two snares layered there as well. Same thing applies. We'll go to the main tab, set them to layer. I think on this, in the case of this one, we'll just do the same thing. We'll turn on the amp envelope, set it to one shot, sync it up, and we'll just tighten up the release a little bit and maybe bring down the sustain to like 75 again. See how that sounds. And you know, if we solo each layer, there's our 808 layer and our acoustic layer. So then we could then maybe get some acoustic hi-hats from Groove Agent SE. Let's maybe close this up, and we've got a hi-hat tip open right down here. Let's maybe record an open hat to this pad. Turn on recorder, record once again. Okay, and then we'll find a closed hat just above it there. And we'll record to this one. Okay, so what we could then do is we'll go to our main tab again. We'll just tighten up the envelope on this hi-hat here. I think on this one, we'll sync it to 1/16th note. And we'll bring the sustain down a little more, maybe to 60%. And then on the open hat, we'll do something similar. We'll maybe do 2/16ths on this one and bring the sustain down a little more. Let's maybe do 50% on this one. There we go. All right. So then we could start drawing in some MIDI here, which brings me on to another question from Proschema. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. His question was, can you please make a video showing how to create your own MIDI patterns and save it for use later? Where do you save them to and how do you recall it later? So what we'll do here is just draw in some MIDI on this one. This will be our kick drum. Put that on point there. We'll drag that over to here. Draw in some snares. Do the same thing. And then maybe some hats here. Let's adjust the velocities on these guys a bit. Widen this a bit. All right, and then we'll actually let's maybe copy those over to here. I'm just holding Alt and dragging there to copy those. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, let's maybe up the tempo a little. And when I'm making my own kits from scratch, the way I save my MIDI patterns is basically just to drag it onto a pattern pad here. We can turn off that sidechain input now. We can get rid of that MIDI now. And then, I'll generally save these, rename these to what they are before I do anything else. And open hat. Okay, and then we'll just save the kit. Save it as drums 1. And then what you can do here is select a category. And we're going to go to, oh, we don't want character, we want the category. We'll go to drums and perc, and then a subcategory of drum sets. And we'll save that. So then, if we were to reset this now, remove that kit, we go in here into our user library, which is this little button here. And we can search for, we'll need to go to all agents. And we'll search for drums 1. There it is. And then, we've got our kit back. And the pattern saved with it. There it is. And you can create as many of those drum grooves as you like for whichever kit you're working on. If you were working with Groove Agent SE, generally what you would have to do if you wanted to sample from another instrument like that, it's a bit of a longer, more tedious process. So I'll just demonstrate it with the kit from Neferton here. So we'll draw in one on C1. Just up the velocity a bit there. And what you'd want to do basically is render in place. So you can go to Edit, Render in Place, Render Settings. But what I do is I have it set on a key command. So if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you real quick. You can go into here, go to Render in Place, Render Settings. I think I generally have it set to Shift and F1. And then you just hit Assign and OK. So then with that selected, we would just hit Shift and F1. It brings up our menu. And you just name it whatever you want here. So let's call it 808 kit. Okay, it's going to go into the project folder. We'll render it. And then on Groove Agent SE, we had a separate kit here. You would then just have to drag that down onto here. So sampling can be done from other instruments with SE, but it's just a bit of a longer process. You can't record directly onto the instrument. So let's move on to the next question, which is from a subscriber called Miros. Hopefully I pronounced that right again. Once again, he says, great video. Thanks a lot, mate. He said, do you mind making a video on how to route the Groove Agent pads into individual tracks? I'm trying to do that with SE5, but they only work through MIDI tracks. Now, the same principle applies with SE and Groove Agent 5. So I'm just going to delete the tracks we're not going to be using here. So another handy little shortcut here is that we can select tracks and just hit Shift and delete. And it'll delete all tracks we're not using. So back to this Groove Agent 5 kit here. If we wanted to route all of that to different outputs, generally I go into the mixer first. I name the buses within here. So we'll do kick. If you hit tab twice, it'll move to the next one. Snare, hats. And then on here, on the main tab, where it says kit mix for the output down here, if you hold the left click button and scroll up to the agent, you can send it to the kick bus. We'll do the snare to the snare bus and both of these hats. So we'll control click to select them both, and then we will send those to the hat bus. So then when we trigger this, it should be coming out of these separate buses now. And then where you can take it a step further, if you want to assign them to their own outputs within Cubase, you just expand this here. This is how you do it in an instrument track. Use this little button here to activate outputs. Select 3 outputs that we want. Just for consistency, I'll name them. Okay, and then on these mixer channels, we'll send those to output 2, output 3, and output 4. Now hopefully there should be nothing coming through this master output now. If you wanted to group all of those up into a drum bus, just shift click, select them all, right click on one of them and say add group channel to selected channels. We want it stereo. We'll call it drum bus, add track. Simple as that. If we go into the main mix console, into the routing section, you'll see that those are now assigned to the drum bus. The drum bus is assigned to the stereo out. Another cool thing to note here is you can still use these auxiliary sends. It'll just come out of this main channel. So say on one of these we wanted a bit of reverb, we could use reverence maybe. I'm not going to go in and mess with it. We'll just maybe give it a studio setting, something like this. And we'll just send maybe the snare to it. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can send it directly to it from the bus here. Or you can send it directly from the drum pad. So on the sample, no, yeah, on the amp, sorry, on the amp section, you can send it to the auxiliaries here. And that comes in really handy if you've got, say, multiple snares or 2 snares the same and you only want one of them to go to the reverb, maybe on the last snare hit of each 4 bars or something like that. And if you wanted to set one up in Cubase instead, we could turn this down and we will add an effect track. We'll maybe put Valhalla Room on there. We'll call it verb send. Add it. And again, in the mixer, it should have created the sends for that. We can look at it here actually. It hasn't actually done it. That's interesting. Generally it creates it for you. Oh, it's because okay, that's odd. Generally it would automatically send these. Not sure why it didn't do that. So you can send it from there, or you could also create an additional output here, because if you want to be able to have that flexibility to send just single drum hits to it, instead of using the master output, so you can leave that free for when you add different drum hits, you can just activate another output from the Groove Agent main channel here. This one I'm going to call Augs. We'll send that to the reverb send. And on the mixer within Groove Agent, we will just send auxiliary 1 to output 5. So then We can turn off this reverb, and anything that we send will be sent to this reverb here. So we can turn that on, you know, maybe on maximum, and we can use the sends within Groove Agent. So yeah, that's how you would set up multiple outputs within Groove Agent. Hopefully that was helpful for you, mirrors. I believe that is the last question. So just want to thank you all for being patient while I've been offline, and thanks very much for subscribing to the channel. I'll be back with trying to be putting up a video a week from now on. Now I'm all set up here. So yeah, that wraps it up for another video. I wanted to keep this one fairly short and sweet. Big up, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.